is Slava, code.kiwi.com. Welcome to the Software Engineering Culture Meetup. Actually, the engineering culture is really a thing. Back when I started as a tester in 2009, I was happy doing my job and getting a coffee from my coffee machine. Like, this was the biggest benefit. In the meantime, things have moved a little bit forward, and right now we have top tech companies offering the best culture that you can imagine. But it turns out that the culture is something that you just cannot copy-paste, like a piece of code from Stack Overflow, when you cannot write 10 lines of code in a row. And the culture is something that you cannot replace, like a framework. Culture of your engineering teams is something that you form from the very beginning and create by the people that you hire. I'm really proud to welcome here 3 great speakers from 3 great companies: Slido, Spotify, and kiwi.com. Today you will hear talks how to create and nurture your employees, and how to create an engineering culture that helps you and your product grow. If you have any questions during the event, feel free to save them for the Q&A that we will have after these 3 talks. The event code is ECM, which stands for Engineering Culture Meetup. And let me introduce our first speaker from Stockholm, from Spotify. Martin, the stage is yours. Martin from Spotify.
Welcome. My name is Martin. I work for Spotify as an iOS engineer. For those of you who doesn't know the company, so we are currently the largest audio streaming company in the world with about 400 million monthly active users and about 7,000 employees in around 50 offices around the world. So the culture in our company is quite an important thing. Okay, so as I told, we have 7,000 roughly employees, but none of them are engineers, of course. But our main engineering hubs are in Stockholm, Göteborg, New York, and London. And I will tell you something at the beginning about the organization of our team. So maybe some of you know something called Spotify model, which is organization structure where the basic unit is called squad. It's basically a team, just with the name squad. It's the smallest autonomous unit, which have some concrete target and mission. So for instance, your squad can be focused on search, or you can be in a platform squad which is focused on CI, or which is focused on the build process, or whatever else comes to your mind. Everything is solved in a squad. Typically, a squad has one engineering manager, some engineers and designers, and whoever is needed to produce the work you used to do. So for instance, the squad where I work has 8 people and 4 iOS and 4 Android engineers. By the way, just to put it in the context, we have roughly about 100 iOS engineers in Spotify, so quite a lot of people. These squads are sharing one product manager. Again, in the past, where people are talking about Spotify model, it used to be something which will be like self-organized, self-driven, self-everything, and we don't need a manager at all. So that's not really a case today, and it was not in the past as well. So we used to have product manager for bigger projects which go, of course, out of the one squad scope. When we go a little bit up, we come to tribes, which is a collection of squads. Tribe is typically made of squads which have same or similar aim or goal, and yeah, so we have a tribe lead at the top, and so you can imagine the structure. So we have a tribe, consists of squads, and same way, a little bit up to missions, where the mission is basically multiple tribes. So what about the life in Spotify as a developer? So first of all, as I said, we have quite a lot of people working there and quite a lot of engineers. So how it works when you come. So we have a pretty good onboarding system. So when you join the Spotify, you do something which is called Golden Path. And Golden Path is like a tutorial for your area. So basically, we can have a Golden Path for iOS, where you, from the setup of your all the tools you will need in your local machine, you go up to developing some basic demo feature. And all is done by you. So you don't need really some significant support, basically because everything is written in the Golden Path. So if you want to join this group in LDAP or whatever, everything is done there. Even now, it's a little bit automated, so it's even easier. Then when you pass the Golden Path, it goes to engineering bootcamp. And this is something bigger. So you basically join other newcomers, and you create another feature, which is just a demo feature. But in this case, you can try how it's to work in the squad. So you have a backend engineer, you get a designer, some front-end people, maybe data engineers, and you create a basic functionality, which is then, of course, dropped out of the app. But actually, this helps you to understand how we work. And this all can take like a half year in the company. And in the meantime, you, of course, are somehow slowly involved in day-to-day work in the squad. But your main focus is on onboarding. Even your manager tell you that you have to focus on onboarding to understand how the thing works. When you come to the squad for a full time, at the beginning, of course, you are hired as iOS, Android, web, backend, whatever kind of engineer. But Spotify really encourages you to something which we call T-shapeness. So it's kind of, you should be the universal engineer, not only the thing which you were hired for, but it's really great if you are able to do some backend task, if you are able to create some data pipeline which will produce a data which will help to measure some work element in your squad. So how we support this? We have a lot of self-learning opportunities, especially now during COVID. So you can use our engineering university, which contains a lot of things, but it's an internal tool. So you go on the course, for instance, for data engineering for 1 week, and you will get some classes from our data engineers, and then you can join their squad and try some real-life work. So then you enlarge your knowledge with something else, which you can then use in your squad. As I said, squads are pretty autonomous, and this is true also for me and my colleagues. So it's up to me and up to us what we want to focus on. As I said, I was hired as an iOS engineer, but already I have worked on some backend tasks. I have worked on a data task. I also took a look on Android. So it's really up to me what I'm interested in. I can take a look at that, and my company and my manager really encouraged me to do so. Talking about my manager, so we used to, when we drive our own career in the company, it's pretty important to get some feedback from other people. So all the learning is based on that. So you meet with your EM on regular one-on-one, which are weekly, and also twice in the year, we have something called development talks, when we discuss what you want to focus on in an upcoming half year. But it's not from the business point of view, like usually what these kind of talks are, but it's more on your life in the company. So you can say that I would like to explore data science more, and I would like to join data university for that and took some course, maybe go for 1 or 2 quarters to host, we call it embed, in some data-related squad, and you can work on that. So this is something which Spotify really, really appreciate. Yeah, so that's maybe about your development in the company. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
If you have any questions to Martin about how the Spotify works, how is the culture there, feel free to either save them right now in your mind or use the Slido. The code is ECM, which stands for Engineering Culture Meetup. And let me introduce the next speaker, Head of Engineering, Lubo, Drobny, who tells us a little bit about how they formed the engineering culture in Slido.
Okay, perfect. So I'm Lubo, I'm from Slido, and before I was thinking about this meetup, I was thinking about the culture. What is it, and especially what is it engineering culture? And I came to 3 things. The one thing is something about the expectations. The second thing is something about the principles. And third thing is something about habits. It's something we do, even nobody is telling us that we should do it. And yeah, I would start with, we do the high level, we do it with expectations. What I expect from my work. And this is what I really expect, that I'm doing something I'm proud of. And this is somehow setting the culture context I want to have. What does it mean for me? It means for me that I'm developing something well-crafted, that I'm doing really craftsmanship, that I'm doing some quality, because I cannot be proud if I'm not delivering quality, if the software I'm doing is not good crafted. Second thing, it must be something for real. It must be something for real customers. It must be some customers there, and I'm doing something for them. I innovate in behalf of them. This is what I expecting from the culture. Because our customers cannot code. We have to do it for them. Even they, okay, some customers can code, but they cannot code Slido. A third thing, it's about the building community of professionals. For me, this is very important. Slido is not island. We are somewhere. We are in context. We are expecting that good engineering culture supports all of this. And yep, and I expect that my company is providing this for me, that I could be proud of what I'm doing there. Okay. Principles, there are a lot of principles I can talk about. I just pick one because I don't want to bore you about it. And this is maybe important principle for me when we are talking about building the community of professionals. And it's about the empowerment and ownership. What I mean here? I mean that I have to, or I need to have the authority to do decisions. It is very important principle of, I think, of the good engineering culture. And also, if I have authority, I need to take responsibility. It must be balanced. So I have to take responsibility for my decisions, even good, even bad. And there is third thing I need to have. It's capability. I need to know how to execute those decisions, even they are good or bad. And I have, because I want to own it, yes. And why this is connected with building the community of professionals or building my career, because I am author of my life. Nobody will do it for me. I cannot ask my manager, please direct my life. I am author of my life. And this is principle we have in Slido. I am responsible for my career, not our CEO. It's me. But I need to have authority, responsibility, and capability to work on it. And if we are talking about the habits, the good habit is be humble. If we are talking about the learning, building the career, there are always better people than me. I know it. There are always better people to give this talk, more clever, and so on and so on. I know that I need to be proactive. I know that I need to find the opportunities. I need to find challenges. They are not coming from the sky. And I know that in Slido, I have to be active. And I believe that if I want to learn something, I need to be curious. This is kind of Jan Amos Komenský style. If you want to learn something, if you want to grow, curiosity is always the best start. If you are curious, if you want to know what happened if I try this framework, what happened if I change this feature, curiosity is key and a very good habit for me and a very good part of the culture. And of course, not only do something, but also validate and confirm. If I learn something, I need to confirm that this is good learning or bad learning. So it's about the feedback. Okay, this was a little bit high level, so sorry. Okay, so go a little bit down to earth. So how this everything is happening is specifically in Slido. The first and good thing which I like is two career path, that you can be engineer and you can be manager. Nobody forces you to change your career only to earn more money or have the bigger compensation. So we have, let's say, two career paths. So you can be engineer, tech lead, principal, distinguished fellow, or you can be manager, director, VP, you know. And on compensation level, you can be compensated very equally. So you don't need to change your career. You don't need to change the thinking as an engineer only to earn more money, okay? And I think this is very important. How this thing is done? Okay, of course it's done. It's about autonomy. It's about influence you can have in company. It's about the complexity of problems you can solve or complexity of project you can do. It's about the leadership you can provide, of course, the grades, I think. And of course, it's about the expertise and skills. And I want to talk a little bit about the last two, how you can build your expertise and skills in Slido. So day-to-day learning. So what you can get just be at a company and do your work. So first, an important thing again, it's one-on-ones. We are doing this on weekly basis or bi-weekly basis, and it's about mentoring and coaching. So you can get mentoring and coaching from your leader. If, for example, your leader is not able to do it because, I don't know, she don't know or he don't know, you can ask someone else. Please be mentor for me, help me with this. Second thing, we provide resources. So we are providing learning platforms and a book club. How it works, so I decided that I want to learn a little bit more about the Angular. Okay, I'm more React guy, but I wanted to learn something. And in 5 minutes, I was able to click through the company portal and activate my subscription for 1 year for Udemy. And I was able to watch some good course about the Angular. So in 5 minutes. I think this is very important. The company provides something for you. There are no blockers. So you don't need to ask managers. It's pre-approved. And I think this is an important part of the culture. Your learning is pre-approved. You don't need to ask, please, may I learn something? No, it's pre-approved. Just go for it. And really, I like this portal. At the book club, so if team decided, for example, to read one book, they can do the book club, they can share the knowledge, and so on and so on. We do internal tech talks. We call them dev stormings. So if you have a good topic, you can just use the Slack channel and say, okay, I would like to do this tech talk. Is there somebody interested in? And if there are 5 people, you just go for it, record it, and then other guys can benefit from there. Or you can ask, guys, I would like to learn something about the authorization in Slido. Could you do dev storming about this? Or I just want to know something more about the architecture of this module, and so on and so on. Next thing, retrospective and postmortems. Okay, retrospectives are typical agile tool, how to do the improvement, and postmortems. We are doing it very seriously. So after each critical bug or downtime or something like this, we write it down, what happened, step by step, minute by minute, second by second, what happened, who did what, what happened before, what happened during the problem, what happened after the problem. Then we are doing root cause analysis, 5 whys. Why this happening? Why this happened? And then we share it. We are doing the review of the postmortem with all tech leads. So everybody can be there and try to learn from others. So it is not just the fail. It is learning for us. And of course, we are supporting learning by doing. I mean that you can change team. Usually, historically, Slido, we have spring and autumn season due to conference background. Now it is not true, but during the winter and summer, it was a little bit calmer, and this was good time to change team. It's like, I don't know, footballers. In football, it's the same. I think you can change the team during the summer or winter, so we are doing the same thing. Why you can change the team? The another team, for example, they use React. You would like to learn React, you go there. It makes sense, and it is best way how to learn something. And this sounds very simple. You can use 30 minutes every day to learn something, to do your job better. Yeah? But I think this is very hard to implement because there are always another priorities, there are always another task to finish. But anyway, I still try to convince everybody that this is a good thing. Spend 30 minutes every day, not just doing the standard job, but doing some learning, how I can do my job better, or accumulate it. For example, I can do Friday afternoon every week to learn something. How can I do my job better? Not just take another task. And of course, we are doing standard onboarding for the newbies and buddy system. There are something I call cool stuff. Maybe for you it's general stuff or boring stuff. For me it's cool stuff, so we are doing also hackathons. This is a very good thing, how to learn something, not only about the coding system, your colleagues, but also about the leadership, and so on and so on. So we are doing hackathons three times a year, and those are the rules. So do just what you're allowed to do. They are not winners, they are not losers, so you can do whatever you want in our domain. And of course, if you have something we'd like to share, we think that this is the valuable, we write the blogs or speak on meetups like this to share our knowledge, because we want to be active part of the community. We want to share what we know. And this is also a good thing, how to learn something, prepare some speech and then present it. So this is what I did today. And Martin, over you. That's all from my side.
Thank you very much. This was Lubo Drobny, Head of Engineering at Slido. And let me invite, last but not least, our guest speaker from kiwi.com, Engineering Manager and ex-Google, Tobiáš Potoček.
So, hello everybody. My name is Toby. I'm an engineering manager here at kiwi.com. Let me start by introducing kiwi.com really quickly. So, we are a travel company. We are making travel better. We are making it more affordable for people. We are trying to connect the unconnected. So, we have like a really fancy search engine, and we can find connections that nobody else can. And we have a bunch of processes around that so that it actually makes it easy for our customers to use that. Today, my presentation is going to be a bit different. I'm going to talk about our career framework, like it's a rather new tool or maybe a set of processes that we have introduced recently at Kiwi. And I'm not going to provide too much information on how it works, because that's not very interesting, but rather what impact it had on our culture, and perhaps how we came to that framework, because that also tells a little bit about how we work at Kiwi. So yeah, this is me. As like a really brief outline, so I will start with what it is really quickly, then how we got one, and I will finish with what it has been doing for us. That's the most interesting part. So what it is, essentially the problem statement. As an employee, basically any kind of employee, you might have asked yourself, like, how do I grow my career? That's like the main question that we try to give an answer to our people. There are a bunch of questions that go along the lines with that, such as, am I performing well? Can I get promoted? What is expected from me? Am I compensated fairly? Or like, what is actually the next step for me in my career? So what we have now is the career framework. Is like a few basic concepts just to give you an idea how it works. It's actually it's not anything like special. A bunch of other companies have that. I think Spotify has that, very similar to what we have. We have even inspired a little bit in some of the things that we do. So firstly, we have unified levels. So we don't have like tech or domain-specific positions, such as like front-end engineer or back-end engineers. We simply have levels 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 7 or 8. In this regard, it's similar to what in Spotify they have, as in we aim to have engineers which are kind of universal, but practically we are not there yet. So this is kind of like a prerequisite how we look at our engineers, but like, to be honest, practically our engineers are still very focused on individual technologies. The second point, thanks to that, we have a career path. Like one level comes after another, so you take that path. We actually also have 2 paths, like individual contributor, and we have a managerial path. The important bit, we have a skill matrix with expectations. So for every level, we make it very clear what is expected from you. We kind of check that in biannual performance review cycles. Probably you've heard that here as well already. That's just manager talking to the reports about how things are, what could be improved, and what to focus on in the next cycle. And finally, like maybe the most interesting point is that we have like centralized promotions. Normally, the typical approach is that the promotion is decided by the manager. In our case, the manager kind of needs to defend the decision in front of other engineers from across all the company. So we have this thing called promotion committees, where we nominate like experienced senior individual contributors and managers, like both of them, to look at promotion candidates and make a decision on whether they meet the expectations set by the skill matrix. Two core principles. We try to work smarter, not harder. So definitely some people are a little bit faster in terms of how they work. Some people maybe work more hours. But at Kiwi, that's not what gets you promoted. That's not what gets you better. So we're really focusing on competencies, on getting better and smarter at what you do. The second point, complementary to that, track record is what matters. So even though you have a skill, if you're not using it, then it doesn't matter. So to get promoted, to get to the next level, you actually need to show and demonstrate the competencies that we want from that level. So that's it. That's very briefly about how it works. Now, how we got the framework. So the first point, everybody kind of wanted it. The questions that you saw in the beginning, like how do I grow my career, it's something that was from the feedback from employees. Like we have this employee satisfaction survey once per year, and people said that I maybe feel a bit stuck in my career. How do I get promoted? So there was clear motivation. From the, let's say, leadership perspective, it's good for them as well because they have insight into like which people are growing and how they are compensated, etc. So it's like it was very clear that something like that makes sense. In terms of like how we created, it was owned by HR. I mean, this is a typical thing that you would expect from human resources. But it's also owned by us, by software engineers. So by now we have had it for a year and a half. We had like 3 iterations of our performance reviews and promotions. And how we work is that every time, I accidentally clicked it. So how it works is that every time we collect feedback from people, and the people who are the loudest, we bring them to the table, and we ask them how to make it better. And usually the people who are the loudest are the engineers, like engineering managers, people who lead people. And it actually brings to this point, like eat your own dog food. So I'm a manager, I am leading 4 teams, 20 people, and I work with my people on their careers. I'm actually using that framework. And if the framework is not good, then I feel it. I feel it myself because it doesn't really help me growing my people. So it creates a very nice feedback loop to make the system actually good. And that applies to all people or all engineers at kiwi.com because the way we created it, there was like a huge participation from everybody in terms of feedback, but not only feedback, but actual like brainstorming sessions, focus groups, etc. The final point in this section, like processes first, tools later. Usually what happens is that if you want to solve a problem like this, you buy a tool. A bunch of companies who offer you performance management tools, they usually give you a sales pitch which tells you that everything is great. I believe we had that at Kiwi before as well. The problem is that if the company and the culture is not ready for that, it doesn't really work that well, or you really need to try hard. So we actually approach it differently. We invented the process, we invented the principles and core values which we've seen before, and we just hacked it in Google Sheets essentially. The disadvantages is like a little heavy to operate these days. It's manual, but there are many parts which are really nice. And now maybe the next step is to actually find a tool which matches our requirements and adjust it to make it work. So now the third section, what it has been doing for us. Now, in terms of how it has helped us, how it changed our culture, maybe how it fit our culture that existed even before. So the hard numbers, we should always be looking at some metrics that we can measure. I think the important metric here is that it actually works. It's like a Boolean. It works, we are still doing it, and people participate. And because the system is in place, it kind of answers these questions that people were asking before, like how do I get to the next level? Well, just check the skill metrics. There are the requirements, there's a process, you can apply for a promotion, other engineers make the decisions, you get promoted, done. So this thing actually works. Obviously, we've collected feedback, and people don't hate it. Like it's like they are okay with it. They understand why we need to have it. Obviously, they are like not everything is great, but there is no resistance in that. And if you actually talk to people, there is a certain appreciation in that because it actually helps us. We have also collected feedback from those promotion committees that I have mentioned before, as in people who are deciding on whether to promote somebody or not to the next level. And that the feedback is also relatively positive. Like, let's say like 90% of the committee members feel like we have made fair decisions, as in promoting people who deserve it and not promoting people who don't deserve it. So these are like let's say the hard numbers that what we have actually measured, but I believe it's like this. What's more interesting is everything around, like what you can actually observe around yourself, but it's not that easy to measure that. So this one. So because of all this, I feel like we are better aligned on what good engineering means for us. A big part of this whole process, introducing the career framework, was figuring out the expectations that we have from the engineers. Again, it's something that you can download from the internet. A bunch of companies kind of expose it. They share it publicly. We started with something that was ours, and then we kind of iterated over that. And a typical question which pops up in these discussions is that, what is it that you actually expect from all senior engineers? And that question is not very easy to answer, such as somebody says, okay, every senior engineer should have some good idea about security. Okay, that sounds very legit. But what does it actually mean? Even if you think about the principles that we had there, when you're supposed to like prove, with your track record, like how do you demonstrate that you understand security? And then as the discussion continues, you kind of realize that ideally, engineers don't know that much about security because your infrastructure kind of provides it by default. So all you need is that your engineers perhaps don't share passwords without, like, in plain text in your database. But it's like that's very low par for that. So maybe it's like a wrong way to look at it. Another very funny question, or very, let's say, triggering, was about domain knowledge. Right, so we are a travel company. We have a lot of business-specific knowledge, which at some point becomes crucial for engineers to know so that they can build good software. But again, like, what kind of domain knowledge is needed on each level? And then, especially in those discussions with, let's say, some old-timers we met with much younger or like newer engineers, there was a clear mismatch about what's actually needed. So, like, as an example, there was this person who said, like, everybody at Kiwi needs to know what LCC means. And then in that group of actually relatively senior people, you could feel that many people actually did not know that. I didn't know it myself. It actually means low-cost carrier. And that little example showed that it's very hard to get aligned on this little thing. So I think in this regard, it kind of moved us forward as how to understand good engineering. There are obviously like opposite examples when it comes to like metrics and monitoring, where you could feel the same pushback, maybe like from mobile engineers who work slightly differently compared to backend engineers. But ultimately, you realize it's actually a relevant requirement. So in the past year and a half, we have had a lot of these discussions. And I think they made a huge difference in how we think now about how to be good engineers, essentially. Now, from a different side, it created an opportunity to praise. Like, praising it is a big part, or should be a big part of any culture, just like, saying good job once in a while. But maybe sometimes it's a bit hard to remember that, to do that, especially when you are a manager. You need to constantly remind yourself of that. And now that we have the career framework, who puts a lot of emphasis on the track record, right? So if you want to say that somebody performed well, you actually need to look at what they did. And suddenly, just by looking at it, you realize that those people actually did a very good job, and then you immediately tell them. And it's not it's not kind of the cheap compliment, like saying, hey, good job. No, you actually look at it, and it's like you can prove or you can show it that it was good. And and that's well received. Like as a manager, I've been kind of enjoying like every 6 months actually sitting down with my people and walking through what we have done together and giving them very positive feedback for that. Obviously, it also generates some maybe space for growth, obviously, so not all feedback is positive, and that's a good thing, but praising, I think, is a very big part of what we do here. Now I have 3 or 4 statements about promotions. As I said, like we have this special process where we make the promotion decisions centrally, and it has been a very interesting experience so far. So the first one, promotions are networking. So as I said, those committees are basically combined of engineers from all over company. So when you're joining that committee to promote, I don't know, your front-end engineer, you suddenly need to explain that your front-end engineer is a good engineer to somebody who is doing our search algorithm, which are like very different areas. So I mean, firstly, it's good because you can, again, you get into like what good engineering means, but you actually get to meet people and you work with them. So for those of you who work for bigger companies, you probably know that at some point from certain size, it is a bit hard to keep track of like who is working for the company and keep track of like what's happening there, keep track of the knowledge. And now, like this is, even though it's not really the intention behind that, just the fact that a bunch of people who have never met together sit together in a room and they need, or like over Zoom obviously these days, and they need to discuss it, kind of brings them together. Like through this process, I now am very familiar, or I know by name most people at Kiwi, or at least like on, let's say, on the engineering manager level, I know all of them. I know how they work. I know what I can expect from them, and that's very good. On top, obviously, I've already touched that. It's knowledge sharing. So when you are assessing somebody else's promotion candidates, you need to understand like what they worked on. And again, like maybe I'm coming from like web front-end area, I actually am, where we are building our booking forms, etc. And suddenly I need to get into how our automation backends work, or how our search engine works, how our back office system works. And I need to kind of understand that. I need to learn about that. And even though the knowledge is not always super useful, it has happened many times that the knowledge that I've obtained through this process helped me later to make better engineering decisions, essentially. So again, like for bigger companies, it's kind of difficult to get the right knowledge to all the people. And this, even though it's not really intentional, helped in this regard a lot. To build on top of that even more, it's actually very uplifting to read about what other people do. So some of our engineers are really amazing, and the projects for which they want to be promoted are really great. And normally you wouldn't know about these projects, but now you learn about those, you realize how good they are, and you feel good. You feel good about the company you work for, about the environment, about the people that you share the space with. And it just like, especially when you think about the past year and a half, it's been kind of tough for all of us. And this is like one more reason to, I don't know, be happy, to have some positive emotions, to feel more connected to the company you work for. Final point on promotions, they can be rough a bit. Obviously, we're talking about ultimately people's salaries or people's future, and as you can imagine, comparing engineers from vastly different technical backgrounds, it's challenging, and that leads to challenging discussions. That's, I guess, not very enjoyable if these discussions happen. Sometimes they do, but again, ultimately, I think it's better for all of us to actually go through that, because it results to. I clicked it again. Sorry. I think it leads to a better culture where we know about each other, we respect each other, we understand each other's perspective better. This is my final slide. It's about, and I said about like the hard data versus things that you can see around yourself. So that's what this slide is about. When I speak to other managers, I get sometimes feedback that it is changing the behavior of people. So to get to L5 in our company, to be a senior, we really require some proactivity, like actively seeking opportunities and talking to other teams. We require communication. And maybe that hasn't always been like that. Not everybody is really strong in this area. People need to be pushed, but because of this framework, they actually started doing that. They started seeking out opportunities, seeking out projects for themselves. And that's good. That's good. You want people like that. And if you like finish the circle because of this framework, you can actually reward it. So they start doing that, and at the end of the cycle or the year, they actually can get promoted. But another, like maybe it's like a big chance, big thing to big change in behavior. It's also about like small things. My favorite one is writing design docs or technical specification. For many engineers, it's a thing that they don't really enjoy. For many engineers, writing code means working, and doing anything else, it's not work. But if you are a big company with complex processes, it actually means that you have to think first. You have to perhaps actually design something, design an architecture, and then write code. And I'm not saying that hasn't been happening like that at Kiwi. Obviously it has, like our software is complicated, but there's like one more piece of incentive to do that. It's actually maybe not the right incentive, because the point is that if you want to get promoted, you need to convince other engineers that the project you have worked on is it's complex enough, it's big enough. And that always works better if you have a design doc which has nice diagrams and explains the problem statement and gives you an idea about how it works. So people do that, but it actually makes our software better, because we actually do that, because we catch our bugs earlier, we come up with better solutions. Okay, I think that's it from my side. And I'm looking forward to your questions. I think the stage goes back to Furbo.
Thank you very much, Tobik. We'll continue with a small break, 2 or 3 minutes, so please stay on your place. And then we will proceed with a Q&A session, so feel free to post your questions on Slido. The code is ECM, which stands for Engineering Culture Meetup, and see you in 3 minutes. Thank you. Hello everyone, and again, welcome to the Engineering Culture Meetup. This is the second part of the meetup, and this is the part when you can ask our speakers questions, so feel free to use Slido for asking them, or if you are in the audience, feel free to raise your hand and use the microphone. We will start with the questions from Slido. We have plenty of them, and we can start probably with the Spotify. The question that pops the first is, let me find that. There are so many. Okay. Here was that. About the golden path, what parts are automated in the golden path of Spotify? During the onboarding process, what parts are automated?
Yeah. So basically, we are trying to automate as much as manual work as possible. So, for instance, we have an automation which you just download the script which set up all your development environment. So as when you are iOS engineer, so we download Xcode, it set up correct version of Ruby, and these kind of manual things which before were just a part of the golden path in the chapter of preparing your environment. So now this is automated, but the purpose of the golden path is really to manually touch the things. So there's no really, it doesn't make sense to automate something which you should learn, because you will use it for day to day. So yeah, we are trying mostly to automate this really not interesting and but essential stuff, such as setting up an environment.
Mm-hmm. And how long does the golden path at Spotify take? Once again, please, somebody probably didn't get.
I mean, like how long? Okay, so if you mean like how long the tutorial take to complete. Yeah, it depends on your on the type of the golden path. So some of them are shorter, some of them, but roughly about a week.
Roughly about a week. Okay, thank you very much. Here we have a conversation opener. Actually, this is the sentence or question I have started this whole talk with. How can be the Spotify model implemented to the other companies? And guys, maybe this is also the question to you. Do you think that these kind of things can be actually like re-implemented? Can there be some kind of consulting company that comes to your company and said, okay, we have the Spotify model that works out of the box, here it is, and you can have the culture ready by tomorrow? Maybe Lubo, what's your opinion on that?
I can take this one. For me, just the inspiration. I would never implement something from another companies by book. So if they have some culture, if they have some process, if they have some habits and expectation, I cannot take it and just implement it into the Slido. I think it will never work. So always, it's for me just it's more like inspiration, and we need to do it our ways. And I think I heard a good talk from some guy from the Spotify. He told, never copy us, please don't do it, because some companies are doing it. And they don't do it. It's not the best way. So I would put it this way, if this answered the question.
So how can be the Spotify model implemented to other companies? Don't do that ever, right?
No, just get inspired, tailor it to your staff. Think that you are not in Stockholm, you are here in Bratislava, your company, so you need to take it in account.
Are there other companies that inspires you?
Definitely. So, yeah, Netflix, definitely.
Okay.
And they do a lot of marketing stuff to get my attention. So they write books, they do a lot of blogs, and I would say, yeah, marketing. Let's call it marketing.
Do you think it's pure marketing, or it really works?
No. I talk to guys. I have my network, so I talk to engineers, managers, Netflix, and to find out what is real, what is just marketing. It's most of the things. It's real. They are doing it. They are athletic teams. You can survive there maybe 3 years. You have great salary. Everything is there. So it's not bubble. It's real.
Okay. And what happens at this company after 3 years?
I don't know. But usually, so, for example, compared to Slido, we are more like a family, maybe. But Netflix, it's sport team. If you are delivering results, you are there. But if there are better guys, they can. It's like in football, it's like in ice hockey. So I feel it there. Maybe guys, they want to add something to this.
So the question was about the Spotify model, right? So as far as I understand, the Spotify model is about how the teams are organized and about the processes around that. And I believe like Kiwi actually tried to copy it, and then there was this article from somebody within the Spotify that the Spotify model actually doesn't work. And when you read it and you realize, okay, we have been having exactly those problems in our company. So obviously I totally agree, we shouldn't copy things. We should always try to look at what problems we have and create a solution which works for us. I think like the organizational structure of teams and like the supporting roles, that's a tough problem. There's always like contradicting requirements. On one hand, you need like a long-term ownership of software. It needs to be maintained. On the other hand, you want to be able to quickly allocate workforce to whatever priority the company has. You also want to be able to deliver as much as possible end-to-end within a single team. It's impossible to get all of that right. So ultimately, what I believe is that to have experienced people who are able to identify when the setup doesn't work well locally and shift it towards a better solution, maybe on the scale which makes sense for that problem.
Okay, thank you. Let's stay at the topic. We have another interesting question. And the question goes again back to the Spotify. How much does the Western progressivism affect your day-to-day work at Spotify? Is it manageable, or do you need to watch every word you say because somebody could get offended? I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Now I have to watch all my words, right? No, it's hard to say, you know, like, I think in general, I think in general you should like behave in between other people and not to offend other people. I don't think that this is like Western progressivism, or how it was called. I don't know what actually this meant to be. But no, you don't need to watch every word you say. Just use common sense and be polite. And I think this works generally not in Spotify, but in human society. It should be the thing. So.
Okay. So the short answer to the anonymous: just behave as in other company, right?
Or just behave as a human
being.
Just behave.
Yeah. Okay. Shorter answer.
Yeah, maybe I could add to that because I have experience from Google. Google is a company from California, which is kind of the center of this, I don't know what's called, the Western progressivism. Mm-hmm. And I think it's to a large extent just a myth. Like, there are obviously individuals who push for a certain, let's say, agenda or values. But what happened to me, it's like a true story. There is this what's called the Diversity and Inclusion Council. Like, this is this organ within the company to actually work on diversity. And I actually was in touch with this council, and I managed to use them to push back on one of the very progressive people within, from California. The argument being that, Google is a global company. We have people from from the East, from Arabic countries, and if the idea is to be inclusive for everybody, even for these people, and it means like kind of baseline of values. But if it gets a bit too aggressive to the extent it doesn't make sense, like that was actually my comment, like that, let's say there was like this particular piece of paper hanging on the wall. If it doesn't make sense, it can be misunderstood, and it can actually make people from more conservative countries, it can make them feel bad. And if this piece of paper doesn't even make sense, then it's negative. We shouldn't have that. And it was acknowledged by the Diversity and Inclusion Council. So the leadership of the whole company was, I guess, like well of the problem, and was kind of balancing these cultural influences. So again, I think this culture, like this, what's that, progressivism? I mean, obviously, it sometimes shows as an outlier, but I don't actually think it's a big problem.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe just one small note to what Toby said. you know, like all in these companies, as you said, as in Google, there are people from really all over the world. There are people with really various religions, and sometimes you don't mean it bad, but you can publish something, you can have, as you said, some poster, which you never thought that can be offensive to somebody, but when you realize that it is offensive to somebody, then what's the problem to take it down, you know, like. But I don't think it's some kind of progressivism. Again, it's just you'd have people from all over the world, and also like if you go to Arabic country and there is a rule that you should not go in shorts to some religious places, then you just accept it, you know, and because it's offensive. So I would say that, but no, there is no rule that you should keep your mouth.
Okay. We are already answering the next question, so how to approach diversity. My question is like, how many people actually work at Spotify?
Like in general? About 7,000 people.
About 7,000 people. And how big is the engineering team?
I don't know. I don't know. I think I just think that most of the people are engineers, but we also grow quite fast in production of the media. So let's say we have people creating podcasts, our own shows, and so on. So there is also a lot of people in this area as well. So, but I don't know exact numbers. But generally, it's like 7,000 people. 7,000.
Okay. Lubo, maybe this is a question also for Slido. How to approach diversity?
This is an interesting question for us because as far as you know that Slido is a Slovak company, so we started in this area. And then we also start to hire people from Europe or US, and we just started to find out what this is, this diversity thing. And now we are part of a global company. So Cisco is about 70,000 people. So you're having calls with all the world. And now we are starting to understand this question. So I do not have answer because we are just starting to understand the context, what it is all about. Because if you are sitting in Bratislava, you can just thinking about it. But if you are talking to engineers or people or, I don't know, marketing people around the globe, then it starts to be interesting. So I cannot give you an answer how we approach it because we are learning.
One additional question to that. Slido was acquired by Cisco in May this year, I think. It's pretty short time, but did it have any impact already on the culture of the company?
Yeah. Tough one. Yes, of course, because what you need to understand is Slido was acquired, and we are autonomous, separate business unit. So we have all our structure or our autonomy we had before. So we are just plugged somewhere into the Cisco as a whole company, especially when I'm talking about the product and engineering. And after half a year, I can tell. So they didn't touch our way of the work. They didn't touch our culture. Of course, they want to keep it because this is what brings the value. But of course, we have to comply to some processes. We have to change. For example, procurement. We have to change a little bit our HR. So they are, of course, something we need to align. But till now, it is not about the product engineering. We are fully autonomous.
Okay, thank you very much. There is already one question as I have you on the phone. Back to your presentation. Can you expand a bit on the buddy system? Is there some of a minimal time frame or for how long your buddy is available to as a newcomer?
Yeah, so usually during the onboarding, the full onboarding is usually, let's say 3 months, 2-3 months for the engineers. So if you are new one, okay, the first 2 weeks, it's let's say, standard onboarding. So there are sessions and everybody needs to do them. And then you join the team, your team. Usually there is a buddy, somebody who should help you. And the first thing the buddy needs to do is help you to do the first release. Usually, for example, usually in the first week. Because we are releasing daily, we are a cloud application. So this is the first thing. And let's say first confirmation that everything looks good. But usually to help people to be, let's say, up to speed, confident, do the releases, understand what is happening, it's about 2-3 months. And during this time, buddy is helping you to...
For 2 or 3 months.
2 or 3 months. Yeah.
Thank you very much. There is one more question referring to your presentation. This one, how does post-mortem culture exactly work at Slido? You have touched this a bit in your presentation. Can you maybe introduce us?
Okay.
What is that and how it works?
Okay, so usually, you know, this is the postmortem, if something wrong happens, so something like downtime or critical bug, so something which affects a lot of customers. So the first thing is that somebody has to claim ownership for this. So somebody has to say, okay, this is on me, and I want to learn from this fail. If you review our postmortems, in 20 of them, it's clear, yeah, that's me or you, and you own it. Sometimes it's not clear. In this case, we need to decide. Sometimes it's more complex, and if it is more complex, it is better case to learn what went wrong and why. Even owner of the postmortem is not clear. And how it works, so usually it takes, I don't know, a few days to go through the logs, to go everything what happened, and you need to write down time stamps. Okay, this happened, then during the crisis, I did this, colleague did that. So we just write down everything, and then after the crisis, how we try to help, how we try to cure the system. And then when it is written, I can say it takes maybe sometimes days to do it right. We do meeting like this. There are tech leads, and we are doing a review of it. So you are presenting, okay, this is what happened. And you are, of course, presenting root cause analysis, why this is happening, why. So usually 5 whys technique, and then some action items or tasks you would like to implement in order that this fuck up will never ever happen again.
Okay, there's probably one question connected to that. I'm not sure who should address to, but maybe you all can answer that. I believe it's connected to the engineering culture. Is there something you have tried to introduce, but it failed? Was there some post-mortem about the engineering culture? What went wrong?
Yeah, I do have an example. Yeah, like when I joined Kiwi, I was like an individual contributor. I was writing code, and I was trying to introduce this thing called coding conventions. Google had that. It's basically a database of good patterns and good practices, and it's super useful in code reviews. Essentially, when you come across a bad pattern, you just open this database, you find the right snippet of text, and you just paste it there, and like no questions asked. Like that's a very fast and efficient way to give feedback in code review. It was an opinionated database, as in it wasn't necessarily like, you know, best practices. That's like something is a bad practice, but like one problem can have multiple solutions. So at Google, there was like this recommendation that this is the way we do it. And if there are like 2 equal solutions, we just pick this one because like a discussion about which one is better is actually moot. And so we just stick to this one and just use it. And just made everything fast. So no bug shedding over code reviews. You just drop a link and you're done with it. I tried to introduce that at Kiwi. But the thing is that I got to I switched to a managerial role really quickly, and like a manager of teams. So I stopped coding. I even stopped doing code reviews, and I simply didn't do it long enough for it to take off. So I've written a few code conventions based on the patterns that I've seen in our code. They are still in our wiki. I don't know if they are used, but I think what was missing there is just like more time and more drive to show people that something like that is valuable, and to build up, like, let's say, a large enough database for it to really work well for the company. So I still feel sad about it, but yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Maybe any other examples? I can mention one thing. 5 years ago, we tried to implement OKRs. I know it's not only about engineering, and it failed. Various reasons, chaos, firefighting, no structure. But we did it again 3 years ago with better success. So we did something like.
Did it like once?
Sorry?
Is it like once, the OKRs, or is this an ongoing process?
It's usually an ongoing process because you need to change it, you need to tell. Again, you don't want to copy something Google is doing. You don't want to copy what is in the book by John Doerr, because it's a boring book.
Okay, but how come it succeeded at the second place? What was wrong with the first one? You mentioned some firefighting.
I think this is my thing. I was not there. I was not part of the Slido at the time, so this is just my hypothesis. The time Slido was 30 people, just do firefighting, survival mode, so we are not thinking about the quarterly goals and key results. You have 5 fires you need to you need to solve this week, and that's it. And you don't even know if Slido will be there next week. So in this situation, OKRs probably is not the best framework you would like to implement.
So you had one OKR, like survive.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Without key results, just objectives, survive.
This one is tricky, and this one is probably on you, Lubo. From your presentation, I think it was, like you mentioned some high-level goals and abilities of your engineers, but how can you actually achieve the curiosity of your people?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm trying to achieve it. Maybe I'm trying to hire it. Maybe this is something connected with the beginning of the process. That you're looking for the people who are curious by nature. And we attract them somehow, and they attract us somehow. So the love is all around. If this is working, so it's not about that. I'm telling you, you have to be curious. We somehow expect that the people like this are coming here, and of course, if you are demotivated or there are something else, there are mechanism. So it's mostly about the one-to-one talking to people to remotivate and find a way back to curiosity.
Sorry, we will be kicked off in 7 seconds. I have to fix that. Yeah, 5 seconds left. Okay. Sorry for interruption.
Just rephrase it. It's mainly about the hiring.
It's mainly about the hiring the right people, but
who are curious by nature. And engineers should be. If you, for example, if your mother bought you the first, toy, if you broke it after 10 minutes, you are engineer. Yeah, probably.
When it comes to hiring, Martin from kiwi.com, our recruiting manager, asks, it seems that a lot of companies these days are attracting talent through similar virtues, like lack of hierarchy, freedom to create, have an actual impact on decision making. How hard it is to be authentic without giving the taste of the culture by actually working within the company. Thanks. Long question. So let's start with the simple ones, like how the hiring process looks like in Slido.
Hiring process?
Yeah.
We have 4 rounds. So we are doing this maybe last 2-3 years. So first one is typical HR screening. So there are English, standard talking about the project you did. And then there is small question. how would you merge two arrays into the one? So small algorithmic questions, very simple. And then the last algorithmic question, how can you do it in log n or something like this? So this is the first one. Then it's talk with the engineering manager. Usually it's me or my colleagues. And we are again focusing on some computer science things. So we are asking about big O notions. We are talking about solutions, also algorithms. But also we are talking about top projects. We are talking about the things you did and about the things you want to do, if there is connection. Mm-hmm. And then we are giving homework. Usually it's few hours of work, so we are giving people 1, 2, 3 weeks to finish it. And after that, there is a technical interview, which starts with code review of your homework, and then another more technical questions, more generic one. So it's not like front and back end, it's more generic one. And last is, it was, before COVID, it was lunch with our CEO, or now general manager, Como. Now it is called with Como, because he wants to meet everybody who is joining Slido.
You mentioned homework for 3 weeks. Isn't it too long for the candidate? They get offer very next day.
Yeah, it is. There are people who are motivated. They know Slido and they are okay to do it, and they even enjoy it. But yeah, it is too long, and we would like to standardize it a little bit to 1 day. So as it is typical for all big companies, that you are doing interview in 1 day. So there is morning interview, then maybe some coding work, and then afternoon there is a second technical interview, and that's it. So yes, we would like to make it faster.
Okay, Martin.
For candidates, of course. For us, it is the same work.
Okay, Martin, maybe a question for you. How did the interview to Spotify look like?
Yeah, so a little bit differs before lockdowns or before COVID and now. So I was lucky enough to enjoy the previous one. So that was also some small trip to Stockholm included, so it was nice. But yeah, it begins as usual, as Lubo said, with some HR screening, which is about 1 hour call with the HR. Then you go to, we don't actually do any homework. So if you pass the HR screening, you go for first technical round. And this contains some general questions about computer science, about your domain. So for instance, iOS development, backend, whatever. And then you have some coding exercise. So you do some live coding. And yeah, you have we are all the time 2 interviewers on the a Spotify side. And if you pass this round, you go for the main interview, which consists of 3 different sub-interviews, or how to call it. One of them is against live coding. Then there is a system design interview. And at the end, you have something called values, which is more about your personality, about how do you approach people, how you approach problems at work, and so on. So it's basically about, as Lubo said, for instance, the engineer should be curious. So we try to find, if your personality match our culture, our values, and so on.
So playing hide and seek or something like that. Okay.
Yeah. So it's pretty long.
Okay. Thank you. So we have people hired, we have them onboarded. Right now I have a couple of questions right to topic about the career framework in kiwi.com. So probably we can move on to that. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to post them. There is one question that we can start probably with. How do you keep record of what engineers did so that you can promote them?
That's a good question. So as the process is new or was new, so at that moment that was pretty hard. at the same time, I would say that as a manager, you should have an idea of what your reports were doing or had been doing. Also, there are tools like ticketing systems that you can always, filter out the tickets that have been delivered. Now that the system is running and people are counting on it, they are just making notes along the line. Like while preparing for the process, you just keep track of what that person did. I actually promoted 2 of my people, so when there was an interesting discussion in their meeting, I just made myself a note in my private document, and then I brought it up during the promotion process.
Okay, coming to the promotion itself, there is another question. How often does somebody from the promotion committee say, no, this guy doesn't deserve to be promoted? He doesn't deserve the promotion. What would you do then?
So like in the previous rounds, I think like 90% of nominated people were promoted. I think that's a lot. I can't really, I don't know how to interpret that number, what it actually means. What we need to keep in mind that many people don't even nominate their people. So like the bar is pretty high. The bar is pretty clear even before the nominations start. So we usually encourage people to nominate only those engineers where they are confident that they are on that level. So the committee is, let's say, the final check, and 90% of people go past that check.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And in addition to that, what do you think is the future or next stage of this promotion framework at kiwi.com, or is it just maybe the final state?
So it's about optimizations. Essentially, the whole process has been very agile. So like small steps, small iterations, collecting feedback, and we still know that some parts are not ideal. Like as I said, we don't really have any proper tooling. It takes a lot of time to set it up. I think for engineers it works quite well. I mean, for the consumers, for the employees, mainly engineers, but also like other roles which are part of it now as well. It's pretty okay. It takes time for HR and for some operations people to set it up. So that's definitely one thing to improve. A major improvement in this round is a new skill matrix. So we started with a very detailed skill matrix. We had like 20 competencies covering every individual aspect of engineering life, and that didn't really work well. So now we have something which is way smaller and actually something similar to what other companies have. So this was a change that we are now rolling out in the actually ongoing performance review round, which is happening as we speak. And obviously it's a new thing, so we will collect feedback and probably improve it again. So I'm not seeing any major changes. It's more about getting used to it, making it faster, making it slightly less, make it more energy efficient, let's say. Like right now it still costs a lot of energy to do this, so in the long run we need to make it streamlined and easy and fast to carry out.
Okay, maybe a question to other speakers, like for example, how does the promotion work at Slido?
Now we are merging some promotion system for Slido with, of course, we are aligning with Cisco. And what we did this September, because this was the time when we are doing this thing, it was kind of interesting for me because I learned how Cisco is doing it. There are, of course, some skills, there are some tables, but what was very important was question. For example, Martin, you are in my team, and I'm thinking about the promotion, and I need to answer those questions in the framework. So, do I expect extraordinary results from you? Do I looking for your help if I want to do best project? So it's definitely about the identification of top talented people for the promotion. So it's kind of interesting how to think about the promotions. and we are learning also again this process in the Slido, how to do it. Usually in a Slido, before Cisco, it was very simple. You are promoting yourself, so you take responsibility, you just do it, and then we just say, okay, you are already there. So it was kind of easy. But also this is kind of interesting to identify top talents, ask those very simple questions about let's say, candidate for the promotion. And if you are confident to answer yes, then you can nominate this candidate for the next stages of the promotion process.
And who makes the decision from the committee? Like, how is the committee assembled?
Manager. In Cisco is also your direct manager or your leader is doing decision.
Is it only one person?
No, yeah, okay. Usually it is only one person, so you are not reporting to the lot of people, but of course there is a discussion in the management level.
My question was more about the committee. Okay.
Yeah. So there is definitely.
Okay, thank you. We are having this conversation for 30 minutes. I really enjoyed that. We have two more questions, like the discussion openers, very famous and favorite ones. So let's start with the first one. Maybe Martin, let's start with you. The obvious one, like how Corona changed the company culture in Spotify. How did it work before and maybe after?
Yeah, this is quite tough for me because I was not in Spotify before COVID. I actually joined 1 week after we closed office in Stockholm. But what is the main difference is that COVID really speed up the remote work transition. So right now you can work for Spotify from home forever if you choose so. Also you can combine this and you can also go to office, of course. On top of that, you can also register to some different country and you can work from different countries. So you don't have to be in Sweden if you don't will to, but you can be in France, you can be in Italy, you can be in Germany, it depends. And yeah, so I cannot still say how the culture is after COVID because we just open up the offices in Sweden in September, I think at the end of September. And it's going really slow to people to return back to the office. So right now it's not something crowded. Yeah, so you just don't meet a lot of people there. But generally we adopted remote work pretty fast. So that was what I feel as the biggest change.
So right now you can actually go to the office, but it's not restricted. You have like the home office policy?
Yeah, you can go to the office. Now it's a little bit even a little bit different, and as it is planned in the future because of the restriction in the offices. So there's like some maximum amount of number of people right now, just again because of COVID. So, but yeah, in the future you can. It's not restricted like where you will be, like if you are in the office or if you're at home. Of course, because of some tax and other regulations, you have to do the work from the country where you are registered. But it's, I think, kind of general in Europe.
Okay. Lubo, maybe the question is, how to address the company culture? For example, for the newcomers, if I'm at the Slido, like 3 years ago, I would be happy working at Bratislava headquarters. But can you address somehow the company culture in the remote world?
Yeah, I think in remote everything around the culture is a little bit more harder, especially for the Slido. Okay, we started to do a remote 2 years ago. We just took our laptops at home and that was it. We didn't need any infrastructure. We didn't need anything. It was very simple for us. But now we are in kind of hybrid mode because also this is the Cisco policy and we are okay with it. And what I see about the culture, how it affected and how you can influence it, before I have to say it was much easier. If you are face to face to people, you are talking, you are taking beers, because there is this človečina. I don't know how to translate this human thing. We can see each other, we can talk. It's very simple. In a remote world, again, we need to learn everything. Also, how to nurture the culture, how to keep the culture. We have big support, of course, from Cisco to do hybrid. So you can be at office, you can be at home, you can be there and there. For example, I'm doing 3 days home, 2 days at office, and usually I spend half a day in office just talking to people. And this is probably how we can nurture the culture, but I don't know if this will work forever or not, because this human aspect is here.
Tovik, any remarks? I think you had some remarks on that previously. On the COVID situation, how can you address to your team and team reports the culture actually? Can it be done?
Culture is many things. Like one of the things is simply, I don't know, what colors we like. Like we are Kiwi, we like green, and if you're in the office, you kind of soak the green in because you see it everywhere. It obviously doesn't really work when you are working from home. I think Kiwi was pretty heavy on the social life before. It was kind of like Brno-centric, a lot of parties, and that's kind of all of that is to some extent gone. But they're also part of the culture, as in how we communicate, how we treat each other, what we value, like as in curiosity, proactivity, and that still can be somehow promoted even through remote, simply by the way you approach coding or discussing technical questions. So we do have meetings, we have conversations in Slack, and have several thousand custom emojis in our Slack. I think that's a huge part of our culture, all the custom emojis, and you get it from there. It's like, I guess, like one of the most enjoyable things. But besides that, I don't really have any magical answer. I encourage my teams to go to the office, like to actually select a day in the week where everybody comes to the office to actually spend some time together. I encourage them to have team buildings at least once in a while, or spend some time off when it's possible. And I try to at least spend some time with them remotely. Like I have pretty frequent one-on-ones with my direct reports. Even though we don't always have things to discuss, I think it's important. It's just the sum of the time spent over a longer period. It adds up and it leads to better relationship, to transfer of values. That's basically it.
Thank you. From the audience, do you have any question that you haven't put on Slido? Feel free to raise your hand. Yeah?
Hold on. Do I need a mic?
Yeah. Can we get the mic, please?
Thanks. So it's a question to Martin. As we know, many companies are adopting the agile approach currently, and in the Spotify model, actually, from your experience, have you seen any significant difference or advantage which you would highlight or point out, or it's about structure only? Thanks.
So regarding the methodology, it's up to every squad what is their way of work. Of course, most of the squads, or at least I can speak on behalf of the squads where I was. So we use agile methodology. We used, I think, very regular tools which are used everywhere, such as Jira, Trello, and so on. So I would say there is nothing really special. What I think is that, at least I was lucky enough that in my previous teams, the Scrum was really, or the Agile methodology was really, at least we try to keep it as it should be. So when you define, for instance, you define a task, you put it on a sprint, so we keep the sprints as it is, and not just to put there something just because somebody says so, which is sometimes downside of or my previous experience with Agile. But no, I would not say that we do something really special which is relevant to our Spotify model of structure. Each squad is autonomous, so each squad do their own sprints. They decide how long the sprint is, what tool to use. And the team is roughly about or up to 10 people, maybe sometimes a little bit more, but not much. So then you have really small units who can, so it should not end up that you have 20 people on a stand-up in the morning and talking 1.5 hours about something that database is locked or something like that.
Okay, thank you. Maybe one addition, because from my experience, what happened, very often there are these companies where the waterfall is being used, and actually they are trying to achieve Scrum somehow, and it's a combination, usually the buzzword Scrum, but probably you know this word. So this is not happening in Spotify, right?
We are trying not to happen, but of course it can happen. At the end, even like one of the previous questions about Spotify model, and as you said that some guy from Spotify said, please don't use it. I have heard something similar saying that even Spotify is not using Spotify model. So I don't know, probably it's not true, but what I want to say is that I don't think that any methodology or model or whatever can be just taken from the book and implemented to your team and it will just save your life. So I think that a lot of companies a little bit fine-tune even this Agile or Scrum, and if it works for them, then it's okay. And if not, maybe they can learn something more about how it should work, and they can try to improve it that way.
Thank you.
Maybe one thing coming to my mind, because I feel it's not about the waterfall and Scrum. Now it is more about feature factory and empowered autonomy. Because you can be team, I don't know, in Tesla during waterfall, yes, kind of waterfall, but if you feel empowerment and autonomy, you are perfectly okay. And you can do Scrum, but total feature factory, that somebody is giving you tasks, you are just ticket developer, you are totally unhappy, you feel very wrong, and you feel very bad. This was just point when I'm thinking sometimes about the methodology, because sometimes people say Agile is only good, but it's not true. There are a lot of Scrum teams surviving like feature factory, and developers are just workers. Yeah, maybe. And if you have chance to do some autonomy, like in Spotify, it's great.
And maybe also from my side, I always like the distinction between being agile as an adjective and the agile as the methodology. And when I look at Kiwi, I think Kiwi has always been very agile in a sense like, there's an opportunity, there's a problem, we just deploy it immediately, like in a snap of a finger. We do a lot of A/B testing, like as in when you look at our UI for our customers, there's a bunch of changes that happen, like really small, tiny tweaks, which can make a huge difference in terms of how our customers are confident and ultimately whether they buy the ticket with us or not. And so it's like a quick test, yes, no, does it work or it doesn't work, and then we move on. And I think it has been like that for Kiwi for quite some time, like since the beginning, because that's how you build a modern startup. But then the agile as the methodology comes when you need some sort of predictability and visibility into data. So like Scrum with sprints and boards and Jira tickets that gives you that visibility. So we have seen a little bit of push into formalization of how we work. So I think for banks or these kind of old companies, the agile is really about is about switching from releases once per half a year to actually doing it more often. For us, we have always worked kind of like that. It's more about having some kind of mechanism that allows us to see data and how our teams are performing. Maybe like one last remark. I really like the approach of being agile. At the same time, like many of the projects that I've seen around myself, they actually need a little bit of waterfall. Like they are simply too challenging. You have a huge repository which have 70,000 of lines, which were written a long time ago, and they don't really work well. And at that moment, you need a battle plan. You need to actually spend maybe 2 months just like analyzing and figuring out what's happening inside, and you need to come up with a plan how to fix it. Once you have at least some sort of direction, that's when agile kicks in. You just start slicing, and you obviously you still need to make money. You still need to bring in features, but step by step you are improving the state. But you need to start by like having a vision, having a plan, and that's when it often means like sitting down in a focused work, in a focused manner, and not delivering something for several weeks for this particular project. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a space if you want to say something. Any other question from the audience? Lati?
So regarding this team autonomy, what you mentioned, is it really so that anything could be chosen by the team? Any platform or execution database and tooling? Because then also the deployment or the evaluation of the results or some KPIs, then it's hard to really evaluate. So in Netflix, there are some main decisions which need to be followed, 30% maybe, and then the rest can be on the team. So you really meant 100% is on the team?
Yeah, of course you never are 100% in anything. You cannot just come on the Monday to work and say that, hey, we will build this on Oracle database just because I like it. So this kind of big decision, or in this kind of big areas and decision, it's not the yes or no. On the one hand, you cannot decide on the big thing from day one or from day to day. But what you can do is that you can create something, as Toby said, some kind of RFC, some kind of document where you said that I would like to use this, and this. But problem is that currently we are using some another technology, for instance. But if you create your project, and by project I don't mean a code, I mean just a file, and you convince people that it makes sense, then yeah, you can be ready to go. But what I mean by autonomy more is that we are trying to make the team to decide on really the basic stuff, like how often they will deliver something when it makes sense, and this kind of thing. But using tools, yes, you are autonomous, but of course to some level.
Maybe one additional question regarding to these KPIs. How the teams are evaluated and some error rate, uptime, deployment rate, or
as you said, that for instance mobile team doesn't make sense to evaluate deployment time, yes, because or uptime, downtime, something like that. So on the one hand we use, as Lubo mentioned, the OKRs framework to plan in advance, so for each quarter. And then the plan is evaluated how successful we were. And
you mean the business plans for the team?
It doesn't have to be a business plan. It can be also like on a technical level. Mm-hmm. So for instance, you can say that in upcoming quarter, we will improve our dependency injection framework for something like this. You can define your own OKRs. You can define your target, or you should define your target. And of course, some of your targets can influence other squad, which is completely natural. We are still one company, even when we are trying to be autonomous. So then, of course, there is some negotiation between the squads going on, and we try to sync it somehow. And how we evaluate it, mostly from my experience, we mostly evaluate OKRs. Of course, if I would be some infrastructure engineer, for instance, then yeah, it makes sense to evaluate uptimes, downtimes, deployment time if you have something to do with that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I don't see any raised hands, so we have already 8 o'clock, and this is the last remark or the last question. Do you plan to use this model hybrid of events also in the future? Thank you both Slido and kiwi.com for support of our events, and stay awesome. To answer your question, Rado, yes, we are planning to organize this kind of events more. We are happy to have it already professionally streamed, so guys, thank you for that. And this was the last question. We have a couple of those, but I think the time is over, so I would like to really thank our 3 great speakers for amazing talks and an amazing Q&A. Thank you, Martin, for joining us from Stockholm. Thank you, Tobik, from joining us from Prague, and thank you, Lubo, from joining us from Bratislava. Thank you very much, guys.